it got dark, real dark. Besides going through, my legal troubles with the law, I was in and out of treatment centers and in and out of jail.
Did you want the change?
Wanted the change so much.
You wanted to change.
I believe that God had a purpose for all of that I went through, though, because when I was in the treatment center in Cape Girardeau, I started going to church, and I gave my life to Jesus. And at that time, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how to follow God. So I continued in the drugs and alcohol, but God was working on my life.
Everyone, thanks so much for joining us for this episode of At Home with Emily, a podcast about creating a life you love. I'm your host, Emily Wood, and today we are starting a new series about second chances. And second chances mean so many different things to all of us. I think most of us are grateful that we've had second chances along our paths in life. And today with me is my friend Holli East. And Holli, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I've known Holli for over 10 years now, and I thought that you would just come right on because my friends know they all get to be guinea pigs for my interviews, but you were a little bit nervous about coming on the podcast.
Yes.
It's just not your thing necessarily.
No. I don't like cameras. But kind of like when we sat down in 2014 and did that interview, the minute I sat down with you, I felt comfortable. The fear had gone, and I knew that God had won and Satan had lost. And he just reminded me that sharing my story is not about me. It's about what he's done in my life. And so hearing other people's stories is what has given me hope and inspired me to share mine. So,
Well, in sharing your story, it's a scary thing, right? Because you're opening yourself up to other people.
Yes.
But as we do it, we realize that a lot of people are inspired by what we have to say. Yeah. And it gives them the encouragement that they need, same as other people's stories do for ours. So your kids are how old now?
They're 18 and 13.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. So you're raising the kids.
Yes.
You are, to me, just this all-American, beautiful girl.
Oh, thank you.
From the Ozarks, from this area, and wife and mom. And active in the schools and active at church. And, we pass people every single day, and we may never really know where they came from or where they're going. Right. And to me, your story is just incredible. And I feel like you're part of the less than the half of 1% that has had this amazing transformation in life. And I know you credit it all to your faith and to
absolutely.
God. So your story is one of overcoming addiction.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily just one blip in time and I'm done with that and now everything's going to be good. For anyone who's ever struggled with addiction, then they can relate that it's an everyday thing. And it's one foot in front of the other and you build, right? Day by day.
Absolutely.
And so for you, was it alcohol that was your first thing?
Yes. Alcohol is what I started with in high school and kind of just drinking with my friends. And when I realized that it started becoming a problem was when I had to have alcohol to do anything. I made the Pom Pom Squad and I started drinking before every performance there. So it was kind of my crutch. It helped me to come out of my shell, I guess, be more outgoing. And so that just progressed. And then after high school is when the drugs started.
And did your family know that you were drinking?
I hid it a lot. But eventually, it came out. I ended up getting in trouble with the law. I had 2 DWIs. And
And so it became an everyday thing.
It did. Every day. My 5 o'clock was usually about noon. And just, I got to the point in high school there was blackouts.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot of my past that I don't remember, unfortunately. I'm thankful to be here. And, but I think when the drugs started, that was just another way to medicate the pain and the struggles that I pretty much went through my life.
And two, it's all out there, right?
Yes.
You don't have to look very far for someone to come along and introduce you to something else that's going to further destroy your life.
Yes.
And so you were in college when drugs became part of the picture.
Yes.
So you had gone on to college.
Yes.
And what was that like?
Well, unfortunately, I only lasted like a year and a half in college because I decided that partying was more fun. That was what I wanted to do. And
where did your life go from that point?
That pretty much was my life for until I was in my 30s, till I was about 35. And I met...
Were you able to hold a job?
Yes. I worked through this. I had several jobs, but I ended up working for my dad for the past 20 years. I worked for him, which was a very big blessing, and he was very supportive. He was there seeing me at my worst, but then he was also there when I got cleaned up. So
you talk about your dad a lot.
Yeah.
He is someone who never gave up on you.
No, he never gave up on me. He was there. He never enabled me. He was there when I went through just all of my struggles, when I lost my license twice for my DWIs. And so he was picking me up to take me to work. He was just there through everything. Yeah.
And looking back, that's very meaningful for you.
Yes. My parents were very supportive. Yes.
And so the addiction for you, Holly, it really turned dark, didn't it?
Yes. It turned...
As the path kept going?
Yes.
What was that like?
Yeah. It was horrible. It got dark, real dark. Besides going through, my legal troubles with the law, I was in and out of treatment centers and in and out of jail.
Did you want the change?
Wanted the change so much.
You wanted to change.
Uh-huh. I believe that God had a purpose for all of that I went through, though, because when I was in the treatment center in Cape Girardeau, I started going to church, and I gave my life to Jesus. And at that time, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how to follow God. So I continued in the drugs and alcohol, but God was working on my life. And so in 2005, I got pregnant with Presley, and I laid the drugs and alcohol down and had my girl. And unfortunately, Frank continued to use drugs and alcohol. And so we separated.
Presley's dad.
Presley's dad, yes, yes. And so, sorry.
It wasn't like you could just necessarily break free from everything and everyone.
Right.
Because your life had been built with this other person.
Yeah.
And now you have a child together.
Yes.
And so that was really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Because you probably wanted him in Presley's life.
I did. I wanted him in Presley's life, but I knew that our relationship was very unhealthy, and it couldn't continue the way it was. And so we started going to church about when Presley was like 7 months old is when I decided to start drinking again. So then the drugs started again, and it was like 10 times worse. And but God was still working in my life, and it got really bad. And so I just staying up for multiple nights and trying to take care of her.
Well, that's what I'm like. How do you take care?
I know.
How do you take care of a baby when
at that point,
you're fighting for your own life?
Yeah, at that point, I've been doing it for so long. It's the only thing that I knew. And so...
That was your normal.
That was my normal. But the difference was now I had God in my life. And so he was orchestrating my steps, and I didn't know it. And so it led me to start going to church, and Frank would actually come to church with us. And so we decided to join Ridgecrest. And So, and Frank and I actually had gone to several Christian music festivals, and I started listening to Christian music. My mom suggested that. I went from alternative rock to listen to Christian music. So I knew He was pouring into me through all that time. And so I laid the alcohol and drugs down again. And so I was about clean and sober for about 4 months. And
that was a long streak for you.
That was a long streak.
At that time,
yes.
After trying multiple treatment centers and striving for so many years to break free from that.
Right.
That was big progress.
Right.
I mean, over 100 days.
Yes. Yes.
But that wasn't going to be the end.
That wasn't the end. Frank had brought over an alcoholic beverage, and at that time I hadn't been drinking. Maybe would have a beer or two every now and then, and had meth in it. So I didn't know that at the time, and I gave into temptation. And so I knew what he had done, and I had told him.
You figured it out after
I figured
the
out,
fact.
well, I started feeling it. And I knew that I had not taken anything. And so I asked him to leave, and I told him, I said, you better hold on to God, because that's all you've got left. And but what the blessing was is at that time that I spent the whole night praying. And that's one thing I never would do, was pray when I was high or drinking. And so
what were you praying?
God, just be with me all night. Just get me through this. Be with Frank. Lead him to you. You know, just I was doing a lot of praying at that time when we started going to church. And but what the blessing was about that incident happening is it brought me and Frank both into recovery at that time. And that night he called Celebrate Recovery, and they said, come now, come
And
as you are.
that is an addiction recovery program.
Yes.
And so you knew when you were praying, could you feel God working?
Yes. I felt
And
him.
looking back to that, do you feel like God answered your prayer in reaching Frank? I mean, we're talking about just hours before him knowing that you were recovering brought you drugs.
Yeah. But I feel like I was recovering, but I wasn't recovering because I was still
You still
drinking.
had a foot in the past.
Still had a foot in the past. So, that was the turning point, definitely, for Frank and I. And, of course, we're married now and have created this beautiful life together and this beautiful family. So he went to Celebrate Recovery and started his journey. And I started my journey, too, at that point. But I didn't start going to Celebrate Recovery because I was still a little about, going there because of him. I had to find forgiveness for him. And actually, that didn't take very long to do because that was just another thing that God had shown me in my recovery is that he had forgiven me for all the past and my sins and everything that I have done to people in the past. And so this was no different than those. So,
what was the shift for you as a mom once you were clean?
Yeah. I think mentally, just, physically I was there for her, but mentally, I wasn't during my addiction. So when I started to get clean, I wasn't so selfish with my time. And I was able to, play with her more and just spend that quality time and just really get to know my daughter and just have that bonding moment.
And how many years ago was this?
It'll be 17 years this July. So.
What's the feeling like for you to say that?
Oh my gosh, I'm just so blessed. I'm so blessed. And, the ugliness of our past is not the end of the story. And that's just what God reminds me of, is that it's filled with a comeback about redemption and forgiveness and grace and mercy. And that's what he's given me. And I'm so grateful that he gives us second chances, third chances, fourth chances.
Were there times that you felt like you weren't going to make it?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, many a times. And just knowing that God is still writing my story is what keeps me going. Yeah.
And do your kids know your story?
They do. They know parts of it. We've never sat down and shared,
Right.
everything.
Right.
Just some points, But when they get to a certain age or whatever, we'll share the story. Presley knows more about it than Mason does right now.
What do you hope that they take away from you as a mom and the path that you've had?
One thing that I share with them all the time is that the most important relationship they'll ever have is the one that they have with Jesus. That he is the one who won't fail them, and that they're going to go through ups and downs. And, their dad and I can be there for them and will be there for them, but ultimately God is the one who is going to be their strength and their endurance and get them through everything in life.
You have your story, but then on the other side, you have the miracle of Frank's life too, which there was no guarantee that Frank was going to go the same way that you did.
Right.
When you look at who he was and who he is now, what's that like for you, and how would you describe that?
Oh my gosh. Simply amazing. I'm married to the most amazing man. Just looking back at his life and seeing the man that he is now, and responsible. He takes care of us. He's there through everything, just ups and downs. He's just, before I came, he texted me and called me and is praying for me. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that we have a life now that we pray together, and we walk with the Lord together, and that's the biggest blessing.
Is this what you envisioned when you were a child growing up, that you could have a family like you do now?
Always hoped that I would, and but I never thought that it would be just so abundant and blessed. And I always thought that I'd have a family, but I never knew that I was gonna have my kids at 35 and 40, and that I'd get married when I was 39. So it's just funny how you have a plan for your life, but God always has a different plan.
Yeah. Looking back at your younger self and knowing how you looked at the world and how you looked at yourself and the struggles that you were facing, what do you wish that you could have known?
What do I wish that I could have known? I wish I could have known what God's plan was for my life sooner. I wish that I didn't have to go through so many of the struggles, but I also embraced the struggles, because I know that that's what brought me to God, and I wouldn't have the family that I have today. So I'm very thankful for my past. Like I said, I think the more that we go through is opportunities to see who God is, to see how strong He is, and yeah.
And what hope can you offer to others who are going through addiction in their lives right now, who may be listening to this?
Don't lose hope. Don't lose heart. There is freedom. His name is Jesus, and there is help, and there's Celebrate Recoveries to go to. There's people that are out there to encourage and lift you up, And it's why we share our testimonies, because that's the inspiration that I had been given when I was going to Celebrate Recovery. And so just to share that testimony. And
you're not alone.
No.
Right?
No.
Because I do feel like you can feel very alone.
Yes.
But it's a lie.
It is a lie.
Because there are all kinds of people out there who have been through what you have been through. You're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
And they have found the other side.
Yes. Yeah. And places like Celebrate Recovery, that's what they offer. So you can go in and share your hurts and habits and hang-ups, and so you feel like you're not alone because you're around others who are struggling like you are. And a lot of the stories, they look different, but we all have that common bond, just looking for the hope. And so, yeah.
And that's a big part of it, right? Is having somebody alongside you.
Yes.
To help you and guide you, or maybe somebody who's just a couple steps ahead of where you are.
Right. Yeah, I've had many of those mentors in the past 17 years. And some through church, a lot through Celebrate Recovery. And to be able to be at a place to be that for somebody else, I think that's what God intends us to do.
That's a pretty cool
part
feeling.
Of the journey. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so, how are you involved now, or are you involved now?
Right now, I haven't been going to Celebrate Recovery, but I plan on getting back because I feel like God is leading me to go back there. He's not done with me yet there. So Frank is still involved in Celebrate Recovery there. I had taken time off to be with my mom before she passed away. And then, of course, life gets in the way. Kids are growing up. And so I just think that's another thing that Satan wants to do. He wants to keep us away from serving the Lord. And so I think that's just another thing that's part of my journey, is just not believing the lies that Satan says, that he says you're not good enough, or your story's over, because our story's never over. So I just look forward to going back.
There's always more to do.
There's always more to do, definitely. And I look forward to what God has in store for me for that.
Well, I am grateful to you for sharing your story with all of us and inspiring us. And, I consider you a friend after meeting you a decade ago, and I am very proud of you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you very much, Emily. Thank you.
And thank you so much for joining us for this episode of At Home with Emily, a podcast about creating a life you love. All this month, we are talking about second chances. If you are watching us on YouTube, please be sure to like and subscribe. We have a new episode dropping every Wednesday. You can also head to aroundtheozarks.com and sign up for our daily newsletter. And please be sure to follow Around the Ozarks on social media. We'll see you next time.